Hello everybody. So this video is entitled Applovin and Meta, two growth stocks trading at or near 52-week lows. You know that I've covered these stocks this past week, praising their valuation a little bit, still calling Applovin a little more expensive, but you'll see I may be changing my tune on Applovin right now because Applovin is very, very cheap and it is a little more expensive, but given how profitable a company like Applovin is, I'm willing to change a little bit my rule and look at a 0.59 more favorably, given how profitable a company like Applovin is. I mean, we're talking about 79% EBITDA margin. We're talking about a rule of 40 at the 109 level for Applovin. And for Meta to me, when I look at these two valuations, yeah, the rule of 40 is a little smaller, but Meta, I look at it as a big bargain. Definitely the cheapest of the Max 7 stocks right now. Note that Meta is still growing near the mid 20% revenue growth. For a company of this scale, for a company of 228 billion in a year in revenue, still growing above 20% is spectacular. And the market seems to have sold off these stocks for little to no reason. Well, for Applovin, I guess they sold it because they missed sales by 1% because they didn't see improvement on their algorithm like they had seen in the prior quarter, so they missed the consensus target by 1%. And that's the reason why the stock is down so much. The market tends to discount the success that Applovin has had for the past 5 years. This is a stock that has 5x in 5 years. And for Meta, the market is fearful about AI capex, but I wouldn't be fearful for that. And I'll get to that in a second. Remember, a lot of the capacity that Meta has actually secured it when the prices for GPUs and when the prices for access to power and the cost of these contracts were much lower than they are today. Meta could actually turn around and resell some of that compute if they were not to use it for consumer AI agents, which they want to roll out in all of their apps, right? You're going to have an Instagram assistant who takes care of your life, right? Or a Facebook assistant. Imagine how that's going to be a big deal. And Meta could literally, have 1/3 of the planet, maybe 10 years from now, paying them $5 a month. That's, to me, that's the theory I see. If you're subscribed to X Premium, that's the same strategy that I see for Meta. I think Meta could be a stellar investment going forward. And of course, I cover these because the valuation is super cheap for both of them, but especially cheap when you look at the chart, down 25%, down 28% the past year for Applovin, but actually 48% for the past, 2 months and a half. 2 months and a half down 48%. 2026 has been an awful year for so many stocks, including the former darlings of the market, including stocks that have been doing well. So let's talk about Applovin first. So Applovin, if you look at the performance over the past 5 years, it's actually quite impressive. You would have 5.5x your money over 5 years, and that is despite the big drop that we saw these past 2 months and a half, and the big drop we saw this year. It would have still be 5.5x your money in 5 years. That's quite outstanding. This is a company, Applovin, that has guided. Well, it's not really guided, but the CEO, and it's a founder-led company, and the company and the CEO have said multiple times that they see sales growing at a 30% clip for the foreseeable futures. And so the foreseeable future, I'm thinking this is into the 2030s is what I'm thinking. And Applovin is a business that is applying their success to gaming and the success that they've had in gaming to consumer and consumer sales. And this is where I need to explain a little bit of the business. Applovin is the gateway. It is the main publisher, the biggest publisher of ads for mobile games. And they're now turning towards selling consumer goods to these mobile game players. These mobile game players, usually they see ads for other games. And so Applovin has been a very, very popular marketplace for developers trying to sell new games and expand their games and trying to get other people to install new games. And so if you play games on the phone, oftentimes you'll see another game advertised. And so that's people usually through Applovin, on Applovin, who use the money, the profits from their game. They use the profits from their game that they make from advertising over game to then spend on the Applovin platform to advertise their own game to gamers. And so they've kind of developed these ecosystems where publishers advertise to gamers and gamers expand their game. And they fight for this attention. This is very much an attention-building fight. But this is about to change, especially if gamers now are not going to be the biggest pool of advertisers for these games. What if the main advertisers for these games is going to be stuff like goods, purchasers of goods? And so in my view, this two-sided platform is a little bit closer to a meta, especially when you consider. So they go about this 1 billion plus people play games every day, and they go on. They say they have a lot of females playing these games and actually seeing these ads. This is a little similar to Instagram, right? Instagram, you can convert very easily on Instagram, especially in certain categories that scale fast. I don't know, like clothing or cookware or anything like that. Going a little bit on a limb here, but it's crazy to think there's 1 billion people playing game every day. So not as big as social media, but some of these games are highly social. So perhaps gaming is like a secondary to social media. Of course, social media is even more addictive. It's 3.6 billion people using the social medias of Meta every day. I'll get to that in a second. But they play over an hour daily, and they're very engaged because they're in the middle of their game, and the game stops, and so you have to watch your ad. And what's particularly impressive about Applovin is their market share. Now, they are doing better on iPhone, right? So this is iOS, 39% market share on iOS. You can see Google only has 15% market share on iOS. Now, when it comes to the market share on Android, on Google, well, you'll be interested to see that. Oh, let me pause this. I didn't get the right one. It's second. They are the second. I don't know why I copied that twice. They are Ask an AI. They are second. AdMob is number one on Android. So on Android they have competition from Google, and Google owns the platform. But on iOS they don't have competition from Apple. They only have competition from Google, and they're winning on iOS. So the market share is actually very impressive. I'm sure if you aggregate the numbers, they are the number one publisher of ads for mobile games, if you aggregate the number. And sure enough, if they continue to grow at that clip, at that growth rate, they will be the number one. And so now, of course, it was mostly other games advertising on the game platform. Now they're opening this to more than just game developers. Now it's a consumer brand. Now you can use Applovin to more than just scale a game. You can use Applovin to grow a new consumer brand and advertise there. And so I think that's going to be a pretty big deal, especially because they've done it for gamers and game developers, and they have a very successful algorithm, and now they're applying that algorithm to consumer. And of course, consumer products, consumer goods, clothes, that is a much bigger market than gamers even. Of course, stuff is a bigger market than all anything digital, but still today. But anyways, that's the point. So they advertise heavily, and I recommend if you are looking at that stock, go on their sales page, go on their website. You'll see it's very compelling. It's very, very compelling. They don't have an investor presentation, but their platform is quite compelling. And they advertise the business. So spend 5,000, get 5,000. Right? This is the classic way you sell advertising. Google AdSense back in the day used to do that all the time. That's how they grew. So you could have a company who's a meaningful player in the publisher and advertiser of ads, and you can see how they're throwing some shade at Unity, for example, Unity Ads, and they're throwing some shade at the Trade Desk, right? So slightly different companies than a Zeta, but still in the same sector. And surprisingly, Unity went up. So I don't understand. The market makers really took that stock way down, and it's tough to understand, especially because it's it's $105 billion company. In my view, trading just way too cheap. And now moving on to Meta. So let's talk about Meta. So if you look at Meta, Meta is somewhat of a similar story, but they're not publishing ads to gamers. They're publishing ads to social media users, right? And some people, of course, call them addicts. They don't call them users. They call them social media addicts. But being addicted to an app like Instagram or being addicted to a game like Candy Crush or Duolingo. That's that's the same story. Humans are humans, and they'll go for that dopamine hit. They'll feel good whenever they see a like on the video or anything like that. So, anyways, it's not between. It's 3.6. I thought it was up to 4 billion, but I confused with the monthly active users. So in the last call, they reported 3.6 billion daily active users across their free apps. Instagram being the largest, but Facebook actually being large, and WhatsApp being one of their bigger markets, especially with B2B. They're ramping up ads on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is also the main way they deliver their AI, their Meta AI. A lot of people using Meta AI via WhatsApp, but it's just absolutely outstanding. One of the things I also want to say is that one of the powers of Meta is that they can push social apps to their 3.5 billion people through existing apps, right? You have Instagram, you have WhatsApp. It's easy to throw an ad on Instagram on the scroll, say, hey, install Threads. Oh, Threads, the fastest growing discussion app, right? And of course, if you look at their Threads app, they already have 500 million monthly active users for an app that is pretty much brand new. And they were able to advertise that to their existing users. So if you see the business model here, this is very similar to how Applovin grew by selling new games to existing gamers, right? So this is similar. So and they just launched an app for marketplace, right? For selling goods, for selling stuff. So the odds are, if a new social media is launched, the odds are that social media will belong to Meta, or there will be a lot of many more. There could be many more social medias in the future that actually belong to Meta, because they have access to these 3.6 billion people, and they can advertise to them new stuff all the time at their own cost, right? At their own cost, or they can advertise whatever they want to advertise for goods and products and all that sort of stuff. So of course advertising is the main business. But here's the thing, why the market is spooked. The market is spooked because of AI capex concern, and I don't understand why the market is spooked. I reasonably don't understand. If you listen to the call, that was a really good call. They talk about their AI capacity. Much of it was secured at much lower prices. On this channel, I cover Nebius a little bit. They secured low prices with Nebius. The 5-year contract that they signed with Nebius is now selling that megawatt hour of compute at a much higher price on a short-term basis, and they secured it at a lower price, right? So this is very similar to the Bitcoin miners pumping because they secured access to power at a time when AI didn't exist. Meta could actually be sitting on a gold mine by having these contracts before the AI boom really takes off. And it seems like the AI boom is getting into the second or third inning right now. So perhaps taking off much more than a lot of pundits had anticipated, actually, much faster. So anyways, and we're talking about on the call, the CFO was talking about that. It's like they think they're going to need all the AI they can get, is what they think. But in case they didn't need it, they could probably turn around and resell it at a much higher price, right? So they think they'll need all the AI possible. But if that were not to happen, if they were not to need it, they can just go ahead and resell it and become a hyperscaler. And of course, they talk on the call. Very interesting. AI-generated ads are coming, right? You have your feed. They know everything about you. You just have the AI create an ad that's just designed to sell to you and only you. You don't create an ad for a segment of the population that's supposed to plead millions of people that you put into that group. No, you create an ad for one person. That's AI-generated ads that are coming. I think that's going to be a really big deal. And their other big use of this GPU is for the launch of consumer-grade AI and the launch of an AI assistant. I think part of the vision, and maybe that will become part of a narrative a few years from now as this takes off, is a few 100 million people paying $2.99, $3.99, $1.99 to have access to Instagram Plus or WhatsApp Plus or Facebook Plus. They're working on a consumer-grade AI assistant. And Mark Zuckerberg making that point on the call that most folks probably won't use Claude. We in our circle, even in the stock circle, we're power users of AI. Most consumers are not power users of anything that has to do with computing. They're power users of addictive games and addictive apps and texting. And so if you want to reach these people and search, right? Search on Google, and I guess this is where Google is perhaps even better positioned than Meta here, because Google, of course, my guess is that a lot of people will say they use AI, they'll just end up using Google's AI, Gemini, because that's now the first thing that pops up. That would be my guess for the average person. I don't think the average person will have a subscription to Claude. I think they'll use Google, and perhaps Meta could actually succeed at having a consumer-grade AI assistant and convince people to pay $2.99 a month for it. And that AI organizes their life, organizing their feed, their social media, response for them, etc. So anyways, and to top it all off, to conclude with the potential of Meta, of course, is Meta Glasses, the hottest consumer product in a while. They relaunched a new version, and they have an event in September outlining the next wave of this. But, there's no denying that has been a consumer success. Apple Vision has not worked out. Who is winning the VR race right now? It is Meta with Meta Glasses. What if they keep winning? What if that actually becomes a thing? Well, if AI glasses, if AI enhanced AR VR glasses actually become a thing of the future, well, you have Meta positioned potentially as owning the next computing platform. And remember, Meta was built from Oculus, right? And they bought Oculus from what's his name again? I can't remember. So the same founder as Anduril, right? Palmer Luckey, right? They bought it from Palmer Luckey, right? Who may turn out to be the next Elon Musk, and they bought it from him. So and it's the most performing product right now. And Meta has been good at acquisitions, right? They acquired Instagram too, so they've been good at acquisitions with that VR product. That could actually be one of the hottest consumer products going forward, and I think that's not priced into the stock. And when I look at the price, of course, it's the cheapest Max 7 EV over GP over RG is a 0.35. It's cheaper than most SaaS companies still to these days. You have companies who are right in the eye of AI disruption, who are trading at much higher valuations than this. So I don't understand why Meta is so cheap. Makes very little sense to me. And I think app could be an opportunity right now. Of course, I'll let you know on the Patreon if I ever end up entering app, but it's looking favorable to me right now. So anyways, this was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.